You can choose to shut your eyes and call it a myth, or you can open them and see it for what it truly is, a reflection of everything we never had the courage to confront. Ghazwa-e-Hind. The very phrase sends shivers down spines and ignites 1,000 debates across drawing rooms, masjids, newsrooms, and digital echo chambers. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. History doesn't care whether you believe in it. It doesn't need your approval to repeat itself. It just needs your ignorance. And trust me, we're giving it that in abundance. We live in an age obsessed with comfort, pleasure, escapism. But history isn't interested in any of those things. It's interested in patterns, in actions, in decisions made, battles fought, and ideologies that refuse to die. Ghazwa-e-Hind is not just an astrological theory tucked away in the minds of theologians. It's a question, a challenge, a storm cloud brewing above a land that has always been a battleground, not just of territory, but of truth versus falsehood. You think the past is over. Look again. Every fracture you see in society today, the rising intolerance, the weaponization of faith, the desperate grab for identity, these aren't coincidences. They're echoes. Echoes of something older than you, older than me, and far more dangerous than the weapons we keep stockpiling. And yet we scroll past it. We laugh it off. We reduce it to headlines, hashtags, or ideological theater. Why? Because we're afraid of what acknowledging it might demand from us. Let's not mince words. If history teaches us anything, it's that when enough people bury the truth, it always finds a way to resurrect itself. And when it does, it doesn't come quietly. It erupts like a volcano of consequences. Ghazwa-e-Hind, if it ever takes place, won't arrive with fanfare. It'll arrive with silence first, the silence of apathy, of moral decay, of nations too distracted by their own vanity to notice the ground crumbling beneath them. And then suddenly it will speak, not in whispers, but in the roar of those who never stopped believing something greater was destined to unfold. The most tragic thing about modern humanity is our obsession with pretending we've evolved beyond prophecy, beyond divine narrative. We say we're too rational, too enlightened. But tell me, is it rational to ignore every signal that past those in our faces? Is it enlightened to scoff at a warning just because it's wrapped in scripture? Wake up. The most dangerous battles aren't the ones that come with sirens. They're the ones we never saw coming because we were too busy ridiculing them. This isn't about inciting fear, it's about demanding introspection. If the very idea of Ghazwa-e-Hind unsettles you, ask yourself, why? Is it the war that bothers you? Or the possibility that we've done absolutely nothing to prepare for a reality where good and evil will no longer be concepts debated on talk shows, but forces clashing in the streets, in hearts and in minds? We've raised generations to believe history is behind us. But what if history is just beginning? What if we're standing at the edge of a cycle we were warned about, and we've done absolutely nothing to stop it? Here's the harshest pill to swallow. History doesn't wait for the brave. It punishes the cowardly. It punishes the distracted. It punishes the self-righteous who speak of peace while ignoring injustice, who champion tolerance while tolerating corruption, who pray for salvation but sleep through the call to sacrifice. That's who history devours. And the worst part, they never see it coming because they're too busy believing that ancient texts are irrelevant, that prophecies are bedtime stories, and that nations rise and fall purely by chance. They don't. Nothing in history happens by accident. Everything happens because someone allowed it to. So when you hear the phrase Ghazwa-e-Hind, don't just ask when, ask why. Why is this idea still alive centuries later? Why does it haunt the conscience of a divided subcontinent? Why does it stir both dread and devotion? And more importantly, what does it reveal about the state of your own heart, your own preparation, your own place in the unfolding of history? Because the truth is simple. Even if it's uncomfortable, we're not spectators here, we're participants. Whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, you are not exempt. You are not outside the arc of destiny. If this battle ever comes, physical, ideological, spiritual, history won't ask for your commentary. It will demand your position. And that, my friends, is the real question. Not when Ghazwa-e-Hind will take place, but where you will stand when it does. You know what's fascinating? In every conversation about Ghazwa-e-Hind, whether whispered behind closed doors or shouted across headlines, we fix it on tanks, drones, guns, armies, as if war in its truest form is just about brute force, as if it's all about who has the biggest missiles or the fastest fighter jets. But let me ask you this, when has hardware ever been the deciding factor in the great battles of human history? No. The real war, the one that actually shapes the world, that's the war of the mind, the war of conviction, the war of ideology. This battle, if it unfolds the way so many fear or foresee, will not begin with a bomb or a border skirmish. It will begin with belief, and that is what no one wants to talk about. Because it's easy to invest in military budgets. It's easy to build arsenals. But it's far more difficult to build unshakable minds. It's easy to wear a uniform, but it's something entirely different to wear integrity, loyalty, and courage in your character. We've created a generation obsessed with appearances. We glorify influencers, not intellectuals. We parade nationalism, but forget principle. And in that atmosphere, we've become dangerously vulnerable, not to external threats, but to internal emptiness. We are raising societies that are materially armed but spiritually bankrupt, emotionally distracted, morally confused. And when the call to true resistance comes, and trust me, it always does, we'll realize that our biggest enemies weren't across the border. They were within us. Our fear, our ignorance, our spiritual laziness, our obsession with self-preservation at the cost of truth. Let me be brutally honest. If Ghazwa-e-Hind is ever to take place, it won't be started by warriors who simply hold rifles. It'll be started by those whose minds are already fortified, whose hearts have already submitted to something higher than ego, higher than comfort, higher than the shallow approval of society. It will be waged by people who have trained not just in combat, but in clarity, clarity of purpose, clarity of sacrifice, clarity of what is right, even when it's unpopular. You see, people fantasize about battle like it's some sort of cinematic moment. But the reality, the first battlefield is your mind. The first casualty, your discipline, because a distracted man is already defeated. A confused soldier is already conquered. And when you're fighting a war that's fueled by faith, by prophecy, by destiny, confusion is not just a weakness, it's a fatal liability. This war, if it comes, won't be a test of armies, it'll be a test of identities, of resilience, of who we are when everything around us collapses. Will you still stand when your tribe mocks you? Will you still believe when the entire world tells you it's foolish? Will you still fight when victory looks impossible and defeat feels inevitable? Because those are the people who change history. Not the loudest, not the wealthiest, but the most resolved, the most spiritually anchored. There's something terrifyingly powerful about a person who's made peace with sacrifice, who's already let go of worldly reward. That's the kind of person empires fear. That's the kind of person ideologies try to silence. Because you can't buy them. You can't bribe them. You can't bully them. They've already won the most important war, the war inside themselves. And isn't that what we're missing today? The courage to look inward before pointing fingers outward. Everyone wants to be a hero in someone else's war, but no one wants to fight the war in their own heart. We speak of honor, but live in hypocrisy. We speak of justice, but tolerate lies. We speak of faith, but worship convenience. If a divine war is truly coming, and I don't mean a war of conquest, but a war of values, then the only people ready for it will be those who've already bled in silence, those who've already fought themselves and won. So before we ask who will fight in this battle, ask yourself, will I be ready to even stand in it? Not with armor, but with alignment, not with rage, but with reason, not with chaos, but with courage. Because if this battle is truly one of mindsets, and I believe it is, then the question isn't who has the most soldiers, it's who has the fewest doubts. History has never belonged to the comfortable. It has always been claimed by the clear-minded. And the truth is, you won't need a weapon in your hand if your spirit is already forged in fire. The question is, are you ready to be that fire, or will you be swept away when it comes? It's easy, isn't it, to scroll past world affairs like they're someone else's problem. To think war is a thing that happens to other people in distant lands, in forgotten deserts or foreign capitals, that somehow, by virtue of your passport or postcode, you're insulated, safe, untouched. But let me shatter that illusion for you. The next great battle, if it comes, won't knock politely on your door. It won't give you a warning. It won't ask whether you're ready. It'll choose you. And the terrifying truth is you might not even realize it until it's too late. There's a dangerous lie being sold today. A lie that says you'll have time, that you can prepare later, that when the moment of reckoning arrives, you'll somehow rise to the occasion effortlessly, like it's scripted in a film. But life, and especially history, doesn't work that way. History does not give rehearsal time. It demands readiness. It demands clarity long before the storm. And if you haven't decided who you are, what you stand for, and what you're willing to die for before that moment comes, you'll be swallowed by it. People sit around waiting for signs, waiting for the skies to darken, the media to announce the apocalypse, or the prophecy to be printed on a newspaper's front page. They think Ghazwa-e-Hind will arrive with flashing lights and global alerts. But prophecy doesn't come dressed in drama. It comes wrapped in daily decisions. It shows up in small moments when no one's watching, in what you say, in what you tolerate, in what you stand up for, and in what you choose to ignore. And make no mistake, when the real battle begins, it won't ask for your care name. It'll ask for your character. It won't ask which country you're from. It'll ask whether you ever had the courage to live a life of meaning. And the cruel twist: most people will already have lost the war before a single bullet is fired, because they chose comfort over conviction, distraction over discipline, and survival over sacrifice. We've been lulled into a dangerous illusion that history gives you time. That change is gradual, that when things really get serious, there'll be a clear line in the sand. But history doesn't work with lines. It works with pressure, with years of tiny compromises that suddenly explode. One moment you're sipping coffee, the next you're running for shelter. That's how the world changes, not slowly, but all at once. And those who aren't prepared are crushed by it. What makes this even more chilling is that the people who think they'll rise are often the first to fall, because they mistake passion for preparation. They confuse emotion with endurance. They assume that simply believing in something is enough to fight for it. It's not. The ones who truly stand firm in the moment are those who've been training long before the battle ever arrived, mentally, morally, spiritually. They don't need to be told to step forward. They already have. You see, being chosen by history is not a privilege. It's a burden. It's a test. And most people fail it, not because they're evil, but because they're indifferent. Because they sleepwalk through a world screaming for action. They scroll through injustice. They sip lats while others bleed. And they think silence will save them. It never does. If Ghazwa-e-Hind is written in destiny, if this divine clash of civilizations is truly part of a grander plan, then understand this: it won't be made up of those who suddenly decide to join the fray. It will be fought by those who were ready before the call, who lived with purpose, who built themselves brick by brick, day after day, when no one was watching. The people who win are the ones who never waited to be chosen. They made themselves impossible to ignore. So don't ask me when it will happen. That's the wrong question. Ask whether you've become the kind of person history would even want to fight in it. Are you dependable under pressure? Are you consistent when it's inconvenient? Can you hold your ground when everyone else runs? That's the real test. Because when the hour arrives, and it always does, history won't look at your resume. It will look at your resolve. In the end, the battlefield doesn't create warriors. It reveals them. And the terrifying truth is, you won't rise to the occasion. You'll fall to the level of your preparation. So if the call comes tomorrow, if the prophecy whispers your name in the chaos, will you be ready? Or will you realize too late that you waited for a moment that never waits for you? It's astonishing, really, how we walk around pretending like we're free to speak, free to act, free to believe. But deep down, most of us are shackled. Shackled by fear, not fear of war, mind you. No, something far more sinister. The fear of standing for something when it's no longer popular. The fear of being hated for telling the truth. The fear of being labeled, cancelled, rejected, isolated, simply for refusing to go along with the convenient lie. And that, believe it or not, is precisely where the real war begins. Because if Ghazwa-e-Hind is ever to unfold, and let's not kid ourselves, some believe it's not a matter of if, but when, then it will not just be a test of military strength or theological interpretation. It will be a test of moral bravery. Who among us has the spine to say what needs to be said, do what needs to be done, and stand exactly where it's most dangerous to stand, even when it's inconvenient, unpopular, or misunderstood? We live in a culture that glorifies comfort, that rewards silence, that punishes conviction unless it's trending. So when you speak of a battle rooted in prophecy, in purpose, in divine justice, don't expect applause. Expect resistance, expect ridicule, expect to be the villain in the stories of the weak, because weak men can't stomach strong truths. And in times of war, especially wars that start in the heart, it is not the sword that cuts deepest. It's betrayal, it's cowardice masquerading as neutrality. People are so easily convinced today that the safest place to be is in the middle. Not choosing sides, not causing friction, not offending anyone. But neutrality in a moral war is not peacekeeping. You don't get to watch a clash between truth and falsehood and call yourself noble for staying out of it. You're either resisting evil or enabling it by default. And history never remembers the ones who stood still. It remembers the ones who took a stand, no matter the cost. If Ghazwa-e-Hind is truly written into the future, a battle unlike any other, layered in destiny and test, justice and judgment, then it will demand a generation unafraid to confront falsehood, not just on the battlefield, but in boardrooms, on screens, in classrooms, in homes, and most of all, within themselves. Because the first war you'll be asked to fight isn't with your hands, it's with your voice, your values, your choices. And here's the brutal truth. That moment, the one where you are asked to speak when it's easier to be silent, is already here. The early stages of any great battle don't look like chaos. They look like compromise, a little lie here, a little injustice there, a little silence when you should have spoken. That's how it always begins, not with an explosion, but with erosion, the slow decay of courage, the gradual collapse of conviction. I think the greatest danger is death. It isn't. The real danger is dying having never lived for anything greater than yourself. That's the legacy most people leave, a legacy of safe decisions, silent beliefs, and buried truths. But the few who choose to fight, truly fight, do so because they understand something others ignore, that your silence is never neutral. It's permission. And your courage, no matter how small, is contagious. One voice becomes two. Two voices become a movement. And suddenly history starts to shift. If this prophecy, this epic confrontation of Ghazwa-e-Hind is indeed looming, then understand this: you won't be judged for how many followers you had, how many posts you liked, or how politically correct you were. You'll be judged by one thing. Did you speak when silence was demanded? Did you stand when it was dangerous? Did you protect truth, even when it cost you everything? That's what this war is really about, not the soil, not the strategy. Whether we still have the strength to tell the truth in a world built on lies, whether we can carry fire in a time of cold hearts, whether we will break the silence or be broken by it. So the next time you hear the phrase Ghazwa-e-Hind, don't think of borders, think of boundaries, the ones inside you, and ask yourself honestly, when the moment comes to speak, to stand to choose, will you? Or will you look back one day and realize the war didn't pass you bigot past E through you, and you did nothing? Let's stop pretending that prophecy is just poetry. That verse is about Ghazwa-e-Hind and nothing more than metaphorical bedtime stories meant to inspire or frighten. Because here's what most people won't say out loud: if such a monumental event is truly written into destiny, then every single day leading up to it matters. Every choice, every silence, every sacrifice, it all builds towards something. And whether or not you live to see it unfold, the question is the same: will your life have meant anything in that grand equation? There's a laziness today, a mental disease really. This idea that someone else will carry the weight, someone else will rise, someone else will sacrifice. We want to reap the rewards of divine justice without enduring the process of divine purification. And that's the great illusion, that the honor of being part of something sacred is somehow given freely, without trial, without consequence, without blood, without the total annihilation of the ego. Let me tell you, that's not how destiny works. That's not how history works, and how truth, the people who are chosen for something as enormous, as defining as Ghazwa-e-Hind, are not casual believer, not weekend warriors. They are forged in fire, not once, not twice, but constantly, tested until there's nothing left but sincerity and steel. And what are we doing today? We're scrolling, we're arguing about nonsense. We're busy perfecting our personas while our principles rot. We care more about how we look than what we live for. And that is precisely why most of us, if the trumpet of destiny sounded tomorrow, would be found spiritually bankrupt, unfit, unworthy, because we haven't trained, we haven't sacrificed, we haven't transformed. You see, people fantasize about being part of prophecy, part of the chosen, part of the few, but they don't want to walk the path. They don't want to be broken, humbled, reshaped. They want the crown without the crucifixion. But here's the inconvenient truth: if your daily life isn't already echoing the values that such a sacred battle would demand, the biggest economies, don't fool yourself, then you're not preparing for anything. You're just surviving in the shallow. And yet here's where it gets serious. You can prepare. You can begin to align your life with purpose. You can make decisions that echo louder than your voice ever could. But it starts with brutal honesty. Ask yourself, if truth and justice are under attack in your own life right now, in your workplace, your school, your social circles, do you defend them? Or do you silence for the sake of peace? Because if you can't stand up for the small truths now, how on earth will you stand when the weight of an entire prophecy is laid on your shoulders? This isn't just about warfare. This isn't about conquest. This is about purity, purpose, precision. This is about whether your soul is even interested in living for something bigger than food, fame, and followers. And if it's not, don't expect the prophecy to include your name, because the ones who are written into history are not the loudest, but the most loyal, not the trend chasers, but the truth keepers. We are surrounded by noise, empty motivation, hollow slogans. But what we need is awakening, and awakening to the fact that history never waits for those who hesitate. It never remembers those who just watched. It only remembers those who built, those who believed, when it cost them everything. If Ghazwa-e Hind truly stands ahead like a mountain in the midst of time. Then let me ask you, are you climbing toward it or running from it? Are you refining yourself in the shadows or performing in the spotlight? Are you truly becoming the kind of soul history seeks out? Or are you just hoping destiny is too distracted to notice your apathy? Because the moment may come when prophecy moves from the page to the pavement, when theory becomes reality. And when that moment does arrive, it won't ask you what you believed in your mind. It will ask what you built in your life. Will your answer be worthy? Or will you realize too late that you spent your days preparing for a world that never mattered while ignoring one war that always did? It's one thing to talk about Ghazwa-e-Hind as a theory, a future event, a prophecy on paper. That's safe, isn't it? That's comfortable. You can sit on your couch, sip your coffee, and debate its timing and nature like it's a game of chess. But I'll tell you what no one dares to say. The war isn't waiting. It's already here. Not with tanks and missiles, no, armies, with narratives, with cowardice disguised as peace. It's a war for the soul, and most people don't even realize they're already losing, because here's what separates those who watch history from those who make it sacrifice, not just the dramatic kind, not just giving your life on a battlefield. No, I'm talking about the daily grinding, uncomfortable kind, the kind that costs you friends, reputation, comfort, and control, the kind that forces you to give up the version of yourself that the world accepts so you can become the version that truth demands. But what do we see today? We see people chasing ease, people who want the destination but refuse the discipline, people who quote hadith and scripture but don't embody an ounce of the grit, resilience, or grit those words were meant to ignite. It's all performance, no power, all noise, no nerve. And when the real test comes, when falsehood wraps itself in respectability and truth is framed as extremism, most will fold, because they never sacrificed when it was small. They never gave up comfort, ego, pride. They never trained their soul to obey before they were asked to die for anything. And let me tell you, if you can't give up a desire, you'll never give up your life. Sacrifice is not romantic. It's not Instagrammable. It's ugly. It's painful. It's humiliating. It looks like praying when you don't want to, speaking up when your voice shakes, being loyal when betrayal would be easier, forgiving when rage feels righteous, staying silent when your ego screams for applause. And it's in those moments, those silent battles no one sees, where real warriors are made. Because before any sword raised in defense of truth, it must first be raised against the self. If Ghazwa-e-Hind is a divinely decreed moment in time, and some believe it is, then the warriors who rise will not be ordinary men and women. They'll be individuals who have already died 1,000 quid deaths before ever stepping onto a battlefield. They will have conquered their lusts, their laziness, their longing for the world. They will have sacrificed every illusion in favor of truth. And when the world tells them to retreat, to compromise, to surrender, they will smile, not because they want war, but because they were born for this clarity. And that clarity, it doesn't come from books alone. It comes from breaking, from rebuilding, biggest economy, from staring at your reflection in the mirror and asking yourself, who am I when no one's looking? What do I stand for when no one's clapping? Am I willing to lose the world if it means I gain my soul? The sad truth is, most people won't ask those questions until it's too late. They'll wait until the noise is deafening, until the lines are clear, until the battle is on their doorstep. And by then, they'll realize they have nothing to bring to the table. No strength, no faith, no sacrifice, because you don't become courageous when the war starts. You reveal what you've already become. So don't wait for the horns of destiny. Don't wait for the skies to split open. Don't wait for someone else to tell you it's time. The war may not begin with armies. It may begin with decisions, yours. Now, today, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to become? What parts of yourself are you ready to kill so that the part worthy of history can finally live? Because in the end, the people who carry the banner in the moments that matter most, they're not chosen by accident, they're chosen by sacrifice. Quiet, brutal, relentless sacrifice. And when the final call comes, if it ever does, you won't have time to prepare, you only have time to respond. The only question is will you be reading, or will you wish you had lived differently when you had the chance?